Hey everyone, it's Rachel here with another candle review. This time we're going to be taking a in-depth look post-burn at Chest of Chaos. This is one of the 12 new fragrances Kringle is launching for Halloween this year. In part 1, it will be joined by 8 returning fragrances, and this launch is going to be taking place at 12:01 a.m. on August 1st, which is a Friday. So in terms of the time frame, that is overnight Thursday into Friday. So it's also an Eastern Standard Time. So I will mention that because if you're in a different time zone, it's actually technically going to be Thursday evening. So I will have the information about the launch in the description of this video, along with the list of fragrances, both returning and new. I will also link the videos to the candles I've reviewed previously. I think this is my 4th review so far, if I post these in order of filming, but I will have that information for you in the description of this video. Feel free to ask any questions, but the reason I have this ahead of the launch is because Kringle did send this to me as PR to review for you guys. I am one of their many great ambassadors, so thank you to Kringle again for sending these over, and thank you to you guys for tuning in and checking out what I have to say about these. I really appreciate all the support, all the comments, all the outreach from you guys during the course of filming the reviews for this launch. So thank you. And if you're going to be shopping the launch, you're welcome to use my code SIMPLYSCENTED, and that will get you 15% off of your purchase. And just know that that is a commissioned code, so I do get small commissions based on those sales. Only use it if you're comfortable with that, but I thank you if you do choose to do that, because I know there's lots of codes out there to choose from. So thank you in advance if you do, and I think that's enough of the housekeeping. I will have all that information in the description as well, but tonight we are going to be getting more in depth into Chest of Chaos. I did a first impressions, first sniff video when I received these, but I have gotten about 20 hours or so of burn time in on this candle now, and I am ready to come back and talk to you guys a little bit more about what I'm smelling here. I'm going to start this review by giving you Kringle's scent notes here, and one thing I do want to point out, if you caught my first impressions video, I had mentioned that some of the candles, the notes were a little bit different on the bottom label of the jar versus what was on the official scent list. But for streamline's sake, going through 12 candles, I just went by what was on the bottom of the jar. But the notes I'm going to read you now are a little bit different, and I feel a little bit more accurate. So I'm told that the list was the official copy. So we're going to go by this. It aligns a lot more with what I'm smelling. So just one thing that I wanted to point out to you guys, but getting into those notes, we have top notes here of warm spice and cypress. We have mid notes of peach and vanilla, and base notes of tonka bean, armoise, and patchouli. All right, so kind of walking it back a little bit to what my early impressions and early thoughts were on this candle. I had said that this was one of my favorites. I really liked it, and really surprisingly so, because the notes really don't speak to me very much. I'm not a peach fan. There really wasn't anything about it that necessarily made me say I need to try this one, other than the fact that I really like the little ghosty label. As you can tell, I have a thing for little ghosts. I have quite the collection of little ghosts in my Halloween decor, and so that part drew me into it. But otherwise, just looking at these scent notes here, it's probably not something I would have necessarily felt like I needed to try. And surprisingly, from cold sniff and to now, I feel like this is actually one of my top picks in this collection. There is a little bit of a caveat here with that. We will get into that later, but overall, just on the appeal and how much I'm enjoying this one, this is definitely one of my favorites here, and I was just kind of strangely drawn to it right off the bat. It was one that when I started burning these, I was kind of craving picking this jar up the most. So that is held true throughout this burn here. As I said before, we're about 20 hours into this one, and I really like it. It's something that I think is a little bit on the safer side. So if you're looking for something that's Halloween, but not necessarily something too too adventurous, let's say, and maybe, you know what? I think probably the most traditional scent in this lineup will be Pumpkinhead, and it will probably sell out quickly. So if you happen to miss that and you're looking for something else that's a little bit more on the safe side, take a listen to this review and see if maybe this would be a good fit for you, because I think it's a little bit more tolerable. It's not really anything crazy off-putting. It's probably not for everyone, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to get as strong a reaction out of some of you as maybe a couple other of these in this collection would. So in the overall picture here of this fragrance, I would say to me this is a very warm, woodsy, and slightly sweet candle. And even though we do have a peach note here, I don't feel like this leans into that sort of fruity candle category. For example, if somebody had this burning and I walked into the room, I wouldn't be like, oh, there's a peach candle burning in here. So yes, I do smell the peach in this fragrance, but I don't feel like it's like the front and center star of the show. I think it's kind of nicely blended into this. And in terms of the actual peach note quality here, for me, this is kind of it's a fresh peach. It is not overly ripe, so not so ripe that it becomes slightly sort of mushy, but ripe enough that it has a sweetness to it. So I'm thinking kind of in terms of a freshly sort of sliced peach. And for me, it's definitely not like candied or syrupy or anything like that. And it also doesn't feel overly like summery. I know typically the like a peach note, I associate it with summer, I guess, a little bit. It tends to be more of a summer fruit around here. But for me, I would say this doesn't have that sort of summer fruit feeling about it. For those who do like peach, if you had Kringle's Gingered Peach Candle in the Reserve line, I feel like it's a little bit similar to the peach note that I get in that candle, minus the sort of apricot. I feel like there's also a little bit of apricot in that Gingered Peach Candle. I don't get anything apricot-like about this. This is more of like a true fresh peach, but it is a little bit similar in that way. So if you liked the peach note in Gingered Peach, you would probably be okay with this one as well. And I think the fact that they took typically, I guess, a summer note in that peach and paired it with a blend of different sort of fall elements makes this a really nice transition scent. So if you're looking for something in that sort of in-between period where you're over the summer scents, you're over the fruity, you're over the coconut, but you're not quite ready for leaves and pumpkins and, pies and apples and all of that, this I feel like will serve you very well in that sort of time frame where you have warm days but cooler evenings, or you're kind of in that sort of in-between period. I think this sort of really makes a nice transition scent in that way. So let's talk about some of those other fall-like elements we have here. We have got the warm spice, which to me, yes, definitely a warm spice. It's a mild spice. So for me, this is definitely not a dominating presence. It's not like Craft Store or Red Hot. It's just sort of mild and mellow spices, pretty non-distinct to me, where I don't really get any sort of one specific spice note more present than the other. It's kind of like just a general fall spice. If anything, it has a little bit of an earthy tone to it, and I would say there's probably some clove in there if I had to pinpoint one, but otherwise it's not really screaming heavy spice. So if you don't like spicy scents, I wouldn't let that put you off. We've also got this sort of sweet quality to this fragrance, which I think it kind of pulls sweetness from a few different places here. First, I think a little bit comes from the peach note itself, just being sort of a fresh, ripe peach, having that sweetness to it. Another piece that could be giving a little bit of sweetness here is the vanilla in the middle. The vanilla really, I feel like it's not overly rich. It's just sort of creamy and smooth. And I think its purpose here is just to really marry all of these scent notes together. It kind of acts as the glue here, if you will, where it just kind of makes this all kind of come together cohesively. It's not really jumping out as a vanilla forward fragrance. It's not a gourmand vanilla sort of note. And I mean, really, even to that point, I don't feel like this is in the gourmand category. Even with a peach note in there, I feel like because there's that woods quality here, it doesn't feel edible in any way. So I wouldn't put this in a gourmand fragrance category. But anyway, getting back to that sort of sweetness, maybe a little from that vanilla, but I think the most of it is coming actually from the cypress because it has sort of a resinous tone to it. It almost feels a little honey-like to me, even though there's not a true honey note here. It just has that sort of like golden honeyed quality to it, at least to my nose. And the way that sort of sweetness and the woods and everything kind of comes together, sort of to me is a little reminiscent of a bourbon barrel, which in my first impressions, I talked a little bit about questioning if there was some sort of boozy note here, like something was coming across at first that maybe that there could possibly be some sort of boozy element, but there's not a boozy note here. I don't want to deter you, but something does kind of keep bringing back to my mind that sort of bourbon barrel reference, where bourbon being like sort of in that sweet family of alcohol, but you have that woodsy tone to it where it's aged. Just the actual wood and barrel itself, that's a little bit of the vibe I get from this overall tone here. That could be different for everybody, but that's what keeps kind of coming into my head. So if that helps one of you kind of relate to what that sort of sweet and woodsy combination kind of smells a little bit like, that's how it makes sense to me. I think my favorite note here, though, in this candle is the cypress, which, again, in my first impressions, I talked about getting some sort of woodsy tone from this, but the cypress was missing in on the notes on the jar, and I'm going, something definitely feels woodsy here. What's going on? Where is that coming from? Definitely cypress. It totally fits. And when you hear cypress, sometimes I think people think Christmas. It's not taking on that sort of Christmassy tone here. This is more cypress in terms of the wood rather than the greenery of a cypress bush, if you will. So for me, the cypress really fits here because it's that wood that it can sometimes have a little bit of a sweet resinous quality to it, but it also has a little bit of it. I guess I don't want to confuse you guys. This is not a smoky fragrance, but there's something about the finish here that I think is part of that cypress wood that does have a little bit of a smoky air to it. It's just a very, very slight, this is not heavy on smoke, but just a slightly smoky edge to the finish of this fragrance where it just adds a little bit of that Halloween piece that might be missing otherwise. But it's really nice. I really love that as a scent note in general. And I like the way they used it here. Another thing that I thought I was getting a little bit of at first was something in line with a little bit of cedar, which there's also no cedar note listed. But one thing I did find in my research here, I was not familiar with the term armoise. I had to look up what that scent note was, and what I came across was a little bit interesting. I guess it's also another name for, was it mugwort, I think? And one of the descriptors that I read said sometimes it can smell a little bit like cedar to some people, so maybe that's where I'm getting that from, or maybe it's just the power of suggestion here with the chest of chaos. I'm thinking cedar chest. Maybe it's that, but I do feel like I get a hint of a cedar in here somewhere. We do have that tonka bean and the patchouli here at the base, adding a little bit more earthiness. So sometimes you can like smell a note that's not actually there because of the way the other notes play together. So I don't know, but all I can say for sure is that I do really like this fragrance, and I've been really enjoying this one personally. And I really think the only piece here that might get some of you is that it hasn't been the strongest of the candles. It hasn't been so light that it's scentless. It's not getting totally lost here, but it's also not a powerhouse. I would say in terms of strength and the actual potency of the fragrance, this falls for me mostly in the 5 to 6 range. I did try playing with this one by putting it in a hurricane one day just to see if that would amp it up a little bit, and I do feel like it did. So I would say with a hurricane, I can get it to a 6, but you're looking at, in a general speaking sense, a 5 to 6 sort of range. And in terms of its ability to throw, this was kind of one of those sneaky scents where it was kind of getting trapped, I think, a little bit by my air conditioning. This one is one of the ones that some scents in my house, if I'm burning them on my counter, will kind of just trail themselves down my hallway and upstairs, where I won't really smell them as much in the room that it's burning in, but then I will go into the other area of the house and find it. So it kind of had that effect too, where sometimes like I wouldn't really necessarily get a ton of it while it was in the room, but then I'd leave the room and come back and then it would hit me. So for me, sometimes if I love a scent enough, I will kind of give it a little bit of a pass in terms of the strength and throw. And I know some of you feel differently, but for me, I love the actual scent enough that it didn't totally bother me. It wasn't enough to be a deal breaker for me here. I do wish this is one of those situations where I could grab like a wax melt or something just to boost it up a little bit. And unfortunately, that's not the case here. I guess technically I could add another one to kind of boost that up a little bit, but not a deal breaker. I do wish it was a little bit stronger, but it was enough that I still was able to kind of fall in love with this fragrance. And what I think I'm going to do here is after I'm done filming here, I think I'm going to stop going through this candle and just kind of let it sit for a little bit. Sometimes a little bit of cure time helps. If you're not familiar with the term curing, it's just sort of letting the oils of the fragrance oils marinate into the wax so that when you burn it, it kind of disperses a little bit better. For me, when I buy candles and they're fresh pours like these are, normally when I'm not reviewing, I will just let them sit for a little while just because I feel like for me, in my experience, it has made a little bit of a difference. Not always the case. I know there's some that are just lighter in general, but for the most part, I feel like I do get a little bit better performance when a candle has sat for a little while. So for this one, after I'm done here, I'm going to probably let it sit for another month or so, and then I'll revisit it. And if I buy it again, which I'm really tempted to grab another one, I will probably buy it and then just let it sit until next fall and then pull it out and see if there's a little bit of a difference there. So if you're somebody who've got a million candles, like a lot of us have a million candles and you can't get to them all, and you want to just like grab it now because it might not come back and then let it sit for next year, that might be a good strategy for this one. But like I said, I am getting enough out of it that I am enjoying it right now. I just know that a lot of you are looking for something stronger. So I do want to throw that out there because I do feel like I recommend this scent. I really love this scent, but I know the strength issue can be a deal breaker for some of you. And one other note to add in terms of the actual burn performance, I had no issues with this burn. A little bit of a hot first burn, just like pretty much all of the candles in this collection, where I needed to trim the wicks after about 2 hours or so. But other than that, this is burning really well. I'm not having any issues with excessive sooting or burning excessively hot or anything like that. It's not dudding out. I have a nice pool going here without a hurricane. As you can see, Flames are pretty controlled and just burning really nicely, so no issues here with the actual burn. So that's my take on Chest of Chaos, another one that on paper didn't really do much for me, not something I would expect to like, and I ended up loving it. So leave me a note here on the comments section. Is this something that's on your list? I hope this was helpful to you. If you did find this review helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And again, make sure you're subscribed if you want alerts for my upcoming reviews. But yeah, a solid choice, I think, in this collection, especially if you want something that's slightly spooky, but not over the top. And you know what? I honestly can't decide if I'm going to pick up another one or not. I feel like I kind of want to, but there's also just so many candles in so little time that sometimes I feel like even though I enjoy it, next year there's going to be something else that I enjoy, and then they just kind of keep piling up. So that's where I'm at on this one. But in any case, I hope you all have a great day, great night, whatever it is that you're watching this, and come on back for my next review. I think it's going to be Mummy Marshmallow. I also have London Fog pretty much ready to go. And yeah, we'll go from there. But thank you guys for watching. Take care of yourselves out there.